Thank you for joining CMB Regional Centers webinar. Our event will be starting shortly. We are excited to have you all here today. We'll be allowing just another moment or two for our attendees who are just joining us to settle in. Hello to all of our attendees. I am Andrew Radosevich, Global Market Specialist for CMB Regional Centers. I'm happy to be your host for today's event. On behalf of CMB Regional Centers, a warm welcome to all of you that were able to join us. It's truly our pleasure to have you here today. We're delighted to present to you another event in our Coming to America series, What Immigrants Need to Know About the U.S. Legal System. We hope that you'll find tremendous value in our discussion today and in our presentations. The information being shared today is for educational purposes and is not meant to be taken as legal or directed advice. So today we're happy to have our friend and regular guest in this series, Ms. Dianne Stewart, President of Pathway USA. Dianne is an expert in international relocation, which is the focus of her company, Pathway USA, as well. She and her husband, Bruce, have been able to assist over 1,500 families to successfully transition their lives to another country and has been doing so since 2006. Also joining us today is Mr. Kai Boyle, Vice President with CMB Regional Centers. Mr. Boyle has over 30 years of business leadership and management experience. Mr. Boyle has been involved in the EB-5 industry since 2010 and is a frequent speaker in EB-5 events. Mr. Boyle has been active in economic development throughout the past 3 decades. We're honored to have Ms. Jinhee Wilde with us to lead our main topic of focus today regarding the legal system in the United States. Jinhee Wilde is the CEO and founding partner of WA Law Group, LLC, a Maryland-based immigration law firm focusing on business and investment immigration. Wilde became a lawyer 36 years ago, advocating for people who have a voice but are not heard. As prosecutor for the city of Chicago and as counsel for USDA, she represented victims of crime in Chicago and the people of the United States on issues of food safety, the environment, natural resources, and rural development. She has been voted multiple years as one of the top 25 immigration lawyers for her exceptional client service, as well as her stellar record of approvals, and recently chosen as an Immigration Lawyer of the Year by Who's Who, Top 10 Immigration Lawyer by Attorney and Practice Magazine, and Top 100 Attorney by Top 100 Magazine. Wilde received her bachelor's degree from the University of Chicago and Juris Doctorate from the Loyola University Chicago School of Law. So today we'll start out with Kai Boyle speaking briefly about CMB Regional Centers and our current projects. Dianne will then be discussing how she and Pathway USA assist their clients in transitioning their lives to America and the things to begin to prepare for. And finally, Jinhee Wilde will cover our main topic of the day, what immigrants need to know about the U.S. legal system. Following Ms. Wilde's presentation, we'll look forward to an interactive Q&A session today, where we will do our best to accommodate as many questions as time allows. And some of you have already sent in questions ahead of our event today, and thank you for those. If those questions apply to our topics today, we will start with those questions first. but we encourage you to please ask questions in the Q&A button located in the controls for today's webinar. If your questions are related to very individually specific matters, we request that you please reach out via the contact information we will be providing during today's event. And we'll be happy to try and assist with those questions, even if they're not able to be covered during our event. And one last reminder, we'll be leaving your audio muted for the entirety of today's event. So without further ado, Mr. Kai Boyle.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for joining us here today from all over the world. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you find yourself. Certainly a delight to be here today in our Coming to America series. And we're especially excited to have as a topic, demystifying the U.S. legal system and what immigrants need to know, actually what newcomers need to know about the U.S. legal system. And Jinhee Wilde will be sharing her thoughts and experiences on that as we go forward. It's also great to have both of you here, Jinhee, of course, and then Dianne, who has been part of each one of these Coming to America series events. And great to have you both here today. And thank you very much for sharing your time and your expertise with not only with me, but with all of the attendees here on this day.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for having me, Kai. It's a pleasure to be here. Oh, excuse me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And again, Andrew, I want to thank you for the good work that you do. And as a reminder, what Andrew has already stated, we anticipate a very lively Q&A session. If you have a question that pertains to our topic, please drop it in the Q&A section. We'll try to get to as many of those as is possible. And remember, if it's case specific or it calls for some sort of legal opinion, we'll probably not be able to get to those, but enter them anyway. And we'll try and reach out to you afterward and see if we can't direct you in the proper way. But please, we welcome and invite questions. We've already received several, so we'll take a look at how many we can do today and get answers to all the questions that you might have. But first, as we transition from our bit of housekeeping there to our webinar, I first want to introduce CMB and our company, and the company that is hosting this particular webinar. Again, my name is Kai Boyle. I'm Vice President of the Asia Markets for CMB Regional Centers. And as Andrew noted, I've been with CMB since 2010. And during that period of time, CMB has grown from a smaller company. We were on group number 4 at the time, group number 4. And now we are at group number 75 and 78 is what we're having the markets these days. So the company's grown from its very beginning to where we are today, a world leader in the EB-5 industry. It's pretty amazing transformation, and it's amazing growth brought forth by the fact that our tremendous leadership. Pat Hogan is our founder and CEO. He's center in the picture. And just to Pat's right, or on the right of your screen, Pat's left, on the right of your screen is his daughter, Noreen Hogan. She's the president of the company. Transition is in the process where Noreen is actually taking the reins of the day-to-day business. So CMB is going to have a very strong foundation, and we're going to be here for a long time to come. We presently represent some 5,700 investors in their EB-5 pursuits. And of those investors, more than 4,900 of them have I-526 petition approvals. That's the initial qualifying petition. And then more than 1,400 have gone the path from green card, or the conditional green card, through the immigration process to the permanent green card. And that's the ultimate goal of every EB-5 investor, to obtain their I-829 approval. And so the families have gone from the dream of coming to the United States to making that dream a reality through CMB. There are many others that are in the queue waiting for their petition to be processed, and the USCIS has a handful of getting those processed in orderly fashion and in a reasonable amount of time. However, every one of CMB's investors that has filed their I-829 petition has qualified for the approval of that petition based upon the required job creation. Again, we are a $3 billion company of EB-5 funds at work in the United States, generating new American jobs as part of the EB-5 program. And every one of our projects from the very beginning to the current day that has been adjudicated by the USCIS has been approved 100% of the time. Our foundation, CMB, is the foundation of the goals of every EB-5 investor. We understand what the EB-5 investors want, and that is primarily, number one, is to get a permanent green card for themselves and their family members as a result of the EB-5 program. The second goal is to see a return of the investment, to get their money back, if you will, at some point in the future. And there's a third goal, but that's a far distant third goal, certainly very distant third goal, and that's to earn a little something along the way if the investors can get it. Now, the savvy EB-5 investors know that they will not chase after a higher rate of return on that number 3 goal if it means putting a higher level of risk on obtaining their permanent green card or seeing a return of that investment. So the primary goal for every EB-5 investor is permanent green card. The secondary goal is to see a return of that investment capital. And the third goal is to earn a little something along the way if they can get it. CMB's staff and team members are literally scattered throughout the world. We speak some 16 different languages and various dialects within our crew. We can answer questions in the mother tongue of most every country, not everyone, but most every country. So if you have a question that you need to have described to you in a way that you can understand it in your tongue, then we're glad to do that. Our team of staff, our investor relations managers, and our associates around the world are some of the best in the marketplace and best in the EB-5. We hear compliments all the time on just how good our crew is around the world. And today is an example. We've had activity overnight in our various markets. I can see my email coming in where people around Hong Kong, people in Vietnam, people in China, people in Africa have been sending emails in, so that the market has been very active. And yes, we've been active as well around the clock and around the world. A little bit about the EB-5 program itself. It started in 1990. It was administered originally by the INS, Immigration and Naturalization Services, and now it's the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, the USCIS. The idea when Congress authored the program was to provide a program that would allow for investors from around the world, immigrant entrepreneurs, to invest in the United States, start a new business, and create at least 10 jobs as a result of that business. If they could accomplish that, and the jobs would have to be brand new, they'd have to be newly created, they'd have to be permanent jobs, they'd have to be full-time, and it'd have to be worked by an American worker. If they could accomplish that, then they would achieve permanent residence card through the EB-5 program. And the program allows for 10,000 visas per every fiscal year. And since 2015, those visas have been used up. So the program started in its inception in 1990. The EB-5 program with regional centers, it came about a couple of years later. And from that point to where we stand today, the program has gotten very popular, and all the visas in the category have been utilized as a resource in the EB-5 category since 2015. Now, as we transition into CMB and our current project, very quickly, I think it's important to know that CMB's projects, again, we have a 100% success rate of the approval of our projects. Our current project is CMB Group 75. It is a capital raise of $26.1 million. The partnership has been authorized to raise $26.1 million for the development of an industrial logistics facility in the Detroit, Michigan metro region, adjacent to the Detroit airport, and in an area that is very busy transportation-wise along the 275 corridor, as well as the air cargo there by the international airport. And also Detroit, Michigan is in the northern states, as you can see in our diagram there. It's also borders with Windsor, Ontario, Canada. So it's a particularly important transportation and economics hub for the United States. It's also the home of the big 3 automakers, Ford and General Motors and Chrysler, and we're all home based there in the Detroit region. The partnership with the developer is Hillwood Development Company. Hillwood Development Company is a global company with a multi-billion-dollar footprint. They're experts in the development of industrial logistics properties. They have experience in the industrial logistics development since 1988. They have experience also in 61 industrial markets, and they have also businesses and developments in 9 foreign countries. The Hillwood Development Company was founded by the Ross Perot family of companies. Ross Perot Jr. Was the founder of Hillwood Development Company, and as many of you may know, Ross Perot Sr. was at one time a presidential candidate. He's considered one of the top entrepreneurs from the United States from the 1960s onward. So here's the score sheet. The Hillwood Development Company and CMB, we've done 31 different EB-5 partnerships with Hillwood Development. There is no development organization that has used EB-5 funds more successfully or more often than Hillwood Development Company in partnership with CMB. There are 17 of those partnerships that have taken the investors full circle, from the initial investment through the I-526 to the I-829 to returning capital to those investors. So those investors have achieved their goals on all 3 of those aspects. 26 of the partnerships presently have approvals of the I-526 or I-924, and there are 6 partnerships that have I-829 petition approvals. The rest of those partnerships we're waiting for the USCIS to get round, or for the partnership to actually have matured to the point where investors are filing for their I-829. It's a tremendously successful partnership. There's none like it anywhere else in EB-5. And CMB and Hillwood have a long partnership that has been successful for investors, and it's likely that that partnership with Hillwood Development Company and CMB will continue for many years into the future. So we look forward to serving you in future Hillwood and CMB partnerships for your EB-5 goals. So that allows me to transition to our first guest, Miss Dianne Stewart, an amazingly knowledgeable person who has the experience of being an entrepreneur, of being an immigrant, and of being a successful business person in her own right in many different categories. And just to have her here to share her talent and her knowledge and her expertise is really a win-win, not only for you as our guests, but for CMB, because I always learn something from Dianne every time that she shares her story and shares her expertise with us. So Dianne, without any further ado, I'd like to extend another warm welcome to you and turn it over to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kai. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's been a pleasure to work with CMB clients over the years and to assist them in this very important piece of their life to relocate to the United States. I am Dianne Stewart, as Kai so eloquently introduced me. Thank you, Kai. And I started my business in 2016. No, my apologies, 2006, when I realized that there were many people coming to the United States that didn't know what they didn't know. And that's really become our motto at Pathway USA. We want to tell people and explain to people what they don't know. And many times they don't know what they don't know. Life is very different in the United States. There are a lot of different things that you need to learn when you arrive here, because things are done very differently than they are in the rest of the world. I came to the United States 20 years ago this year in 2001, just before 9/11. My timing wasn't exactly impeccable, but I did choose a wonderful city to live in. And this is a picture of Charlotte where I live. And we're in the beautiful season of spring right now. And it's really a very beautiful city to live in. And so what happened with me is I unfortunately didn't have the benefit of somebody like me to take my hand and to hold it and to guide me into how to start a new life in the United States. We'll hear later from Jinhee, who will tell us exactly how to navigate the legal system here. I had absolutely no idea of that subject. I had no idea really how the immigration system worked. I didn't understand really and truly how that was going to impact my life and what my future was going to look like once I embarked on this journey. And it became quite the adventure. I really made every mistake that you can possibly imagine, other than choosing a brilliant city to live in, which we've been very happy in. But I made all the other normal and usual mistakes that immigrants make because they just don't know any better. And it's really not your fault. It has nothing to do with how smart you are or how educated you are. It is just a very different living here in the United States. And so that's why it's really advisable to use an experienced relocation professional. And I want to describe to you what a relocation professional is. A relocation professional is not a real estate agent. It's not somebody who says, oh, I do relocation and I can find you a place to live and get your children into school. That is not what we do. We are a concierge professional hand holder and educator of everything that you need to know about being successful in the United States. From moving a family here, moving a household, purchasing a vehicle, all sorts of important things that I'm going to speak about briefly in my presentation today. So very important that you work with somebody who is experienced, has done many different types of family relocations. Every family has their own needs. They have different talents. They have different desires. They live in different parts of the United States. And we are here to guide them and to guide you as to how to make those correct decisions of where to go to. So I moved 2 homes from South Africa in 2001 to Charlotte, and of course my husband, and we had to start our new life here, and we had to learn everything about America that we didn't really know. So let's move on to some ideas of what kind of preparation you need to do to live successfully in the United States. The most important thing is that you prepare, and you prepare for your new life before you get here. There is a load of information that we share with our clients about how you can prepare while you wait outside the United States. This is not a period that you can waste. You need to really put your plan in place before you arrive in the United States. And then I'm going to talk briefly about what happens when you arrive in the United States and how you can improve that experience. And then living in the United States, how you can make a success and live the American dream that so many immigrants have enjoyed over many, many decades, many centuries, in fact. And so let's move on to the next slide, Kai, and let's talk about preparing, how you can prepare before you even get here. So important decisions that you need to make is, where are you going to live in this great, enormous United States? The US is an enormous country, and every single state has a different character, different culture. They even sound different when they speak. And even though we are all Americans, we have very different cultures in different states. And so that is an important piece. Sometimes it's dictated by where your business is going to be or where you would like to work or what industry you specialize in. So depending on your personal background, that can have a profound effect on where you choose to live in the United States. So that's very important. And we will guide you with a questionnaire of exactly what's important to you, what your lifestyle is, where you're from. Do you like snow? Do you like sunshine? Do you like a more conservative environment? Are you happy to have lots of the arts around you? So there are many cultural aspects that are very important when you make the decision of where to live. Next most important thing that you need to do before you get here is to open a bank account. And before COVID hit, we had to have the person in the country in order to open a bank account for them. And this is a very important piece because it leads to your financial future here in the United States. But now Pathway has found a way to open a bank account with a very reputable bank in New York City, and we can open a bank account for you without you being here. And that has been very popular with our clients because they can start moving funds into the United States and with a view to purchasing property. And that is the next point that I want to talk about briefly. Most people think that they will move to the United States and they will just buy everything for cash. This is a huge mistake. I see it every day because in America, we don't spend our cash on large ticket items. We use other people's cash because the interest rate is so low. we keep our cash in order to make more cash in sensible and wise decisions. So purchasing a property is a very important building block of your future financial security in the United States, because very importantly, it starts to create a credit score for you. And a credit score is one of the most important pieces that a new immigrant in America needs to have before they get here. It can take many years, 2 to 3 years, to establish a good credit history when you first arrive here. So what we advise our clients to do is to do that before they get here. And the way we do that is we advise you as to where to purchase, what to purchase, and it is invariably a good, sound rental investment, which you can rent out immediately before you get here while you wait for your EB-5 or your visa to be processed. And an American would then pay your mortgage. And so this we call our Foreign National Investment Program, where you can purchase this property. And some of my clients have wisely bought something that they can move into when they finally get here, which is very smart. Some don't know where they're going to be, so they purchase a property purely for the sake of an investment, firstly, and then to create their credit score. So by the time they land in America, a year or two later, after they've invested in this investment property, they are then on their way to having a really good credit score. So that really enables them when they get here to get a credit card, to purchase a vehicle or two, and they don't need to part with their very important cash that they have worked very hard to accumulate over the years. So those are some important things that we guide our clients to do before they get here. So let's move on to what you do when you actually get here. Very important, most importantly, that most cities in America, you have to have a vehicle. You have to be able to drive yourself around. Unless you live in a very large major city where there are, where there's a lot of public transportation, you're going to need at least one car in your family. And most Americans have more than one car. The wife has a car, and the children, if they're over 16, are also able to drive. So very important that you plan to get your driver's license as soon as you arrive in the United States, because the driver's license is also a form of identity. So if you go into a store and you have to give a check, or they want to check your identity or your age, if you want to purchase alcohol, you are going to have to show your driver's license on numerous occasions. So what my clients do is they get instruction from us as to how to prepare for that driver's license and how they can study for the test in their particular state. You can do a lot of things online. So that very first week that they arrive in the United States, they can book their appointment and go straight to the DMV and get their driver's license. And that really sets them on the road to having a very important piece of American ID. And then the next most important thing is that you make sure that your social security number is being issued. Once you've actually had your interview at the consulate where you get your visa, your immigrant visa in your passport to enable you to enter the United States, that normally triggers your social security number. However, it's been our experience in the past that sometimes the wires get crossed for whatever reason, and this social security number is not issued. And I'm sure Jinhee can bear me out in this regard, because it doesn't always go as smoothly as one would like. But you need to chase it up. You need to go down to your Social Security office and say, here I am, here's my visa. I'm just checking in to see that you are going to be issuing me with my Social Security number. This is my new address, and please would you send it to me in the mail? That is a very important piece, because once you've got your Social Security number, you can then link it to the mortgage that you've had for the previous 1 or 2 years, and voila, immediately you have this magical credit score. So when you walk into a dealership to purchase a vehicle, they can check you up. They put your Social Security number in the machine, in the computer, and out comes your very good, not brilliant yet because you haven't been here long enough, but you should have a really acceptable credit score. So those are two very important pieces. There are many other things that we work with our clients as well, but those are two very important pieces. The third thing I want to talk about briefly is developing your personal and your professional network. Once you get to the United States, you really need to network with people that you want to do business with, that you want to have a personal relationship with. And these things can involve your profession, they can involve your children, they can involve sporting activities, All sorts of personal and professional organizations exist in the United States so that you can develop your personal network. People do business with people they know and people they like in the United States. So let's move on to our next slide, which is living here. And in order to make a successful relocation to the United States, there are many different things that can upset the apple cart. And it's very important that you have the right people around you, because this can be a very emotional and traumatic experience for some people. They are leaving everything that they know. They're leaving trusted and dearly family members in their home country. They're leaving their infrastructure. They're leaving their business environment. So this can be a very traumatic experience for many people. And so we are here to advise and to help and to guide all our clients through those very, very difficult days in the beginning when you're acclimating and you're trying to find your way in a new country and a new society. So once you get here, you then can start building your credit score. And there are tips and ways in which you can do that in an accelerated fashion. Once you get here, we can assist with establishing an income or a new business for you. We can also assist with preparing your resume for you in an American format before you get to the United States, so that by the time you arrive here, you are able to submit that resume to all the people that can offer you employment. If you're in the business, if you're self-employed and you want to establish a new business or you want to continue your existing business, we can also advise you how to do that in your state of choice. And very importantly, we encourage our clients to interact with Americans. We really want you to become an American as fast as possible. We want you to really embrace the American culture without losing your tradition, without losing your wonderful food, without losing your wonderful language. And so it's very important that once you become an American, that you really feel like an American. And I believe that to be very important. Next slide, Kai. How are you going to be happy? You've made this big move. And as I said earlier, it can be challenging. Your children are going to have to adjust. Your wife is going to have to adjust. She may want to work. She may want to be home with the children. Always ask for help. Americans are the most friendly and most helpful people on the planet. Every time I needed something and I reached out to the people that I'd met, neighbors, business associates, everybody was ready to help me. And that's an incredible thing about America, is that when you ask for help, people will drop everything to assist and try and help you succeed in to try and overcome whatever problem you have. And then volunteer. Whatever, everybody has interests, everybody has talents. Volunteer at your local soup kitchen. Volunteer at your children's school. Find something that you love. When I got to Charlotte, I've always had I have a musical background. I did music at university and I performed. And so I immediately was drawn to the symphony orchestra in Charlotte. And so I volunteered at the Symphony Guild. And I met some wonderful people and people that are still my dear friends 20 years later. So I encourage you to volunteer. Many of my fellow South Africans also volunteer at the Humane Society because they love animals. They volunteer at local arts organizations. And so I really encourage you to volunteer wherever you find yourself, because you'll build an incredible network of people and you'll find lifelong friends. And then also social engagement opportunities. There are many, many organizations right throughout the United States that encourage social engagement. So I encourage you to look online and to do your research in those social engagement opportunities and meet the kind of people that you would like to be friends with and that you'd like to do business with. So if we can move on, Kai. Now we have a surprise for you. This is a gift. I've been working with CMB on a wonderful guide called Preparing Your Pathway to America. And we would like to give this to you as a gift. If you take your phone and you scan the QR code, it'll take you directly to a page on the Pathway USA website. And you can then register on that website, give us your details, and we will then send you a link to a 12-page booklet outlining these three steps, these three sections of planning your move to America. And I hope that you find it useful. We've had fun doing it together. And I'm very grateful to CMB for the beautiful design that they did. And I did the input of the content. And so please scan your QR code on here right now, or you can go to our website at pathwayusa.co.za or pathwayusa.co.uk or pathwayusa.biz.tr, which is Turkey, and you can download one of our wonderful guides here and we'll send it to you with our compliments. So if you'd like to contact me, please email me or call me. I'm on WhatsApp, I'm on mobile. I will answer your queries and questions that you have. I'm happy to have a brief consult with you for free for 10 to 15 minutes. So please email me at info@pathwayusa.co.za or visit our website, and all our services are on there, and we'd be delighted to help you make your move to the United States as happy and as successful as we can. Thank you, Kai. Back to you.
Well, thank you, Diane. And I always learn something from you. And today you were talking about volunteering, and you're talking about special talents that someone may have that they can share. I'll share with you that you don't have to have a special talent. You may just have a special like or dislike. For you as the orchestra. Golf tournaments, professional golf tournaments, especially, they really have a huge need for volunteers. So if you like golf, you can volunteer and you can be close to the sport you love. Tennis tournaments are always looking for volunteers. So if you've got a special love or a like for whatever, whether it be a sport or an art, they're always looking for volunteers, and you can be close to something that you're passionate about. And it's really exciting, the way to meet people. And so that's another one of those things that, another one of those sparks that your discussion fired off for me today, Diane. Always learned something from you. Always has my mind thinking in a different way. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome, Kai.
So that leads us to our special guest. And Jinhee, thank you for joining us here today. And your talent goes back to the city of Chicago, and that's incredible. I happen to be in Illinois, downstate Illinois, and your school, the Loyola School of Law and the University of Chicago, those are some pretty prestigious universities. So thank you for your service. Thank you for being part of our event here today. And you yourself, like Diane, you're an immigrant. You understand the immigrant lifestyle and what it takes to come here and to settle in and to find your way in the American society. So again, thank you. Thank you for the work that you've done. I know you do pro bono work as well as part of your craft and your expertise as being an attorney. So thanks for your service there. And thanks for the service that you've provided to all of your clients as an immigration attorney. But your CV goes beyond just immigration. So I think you're a pretty good person to have here on the panel here today as one of our panelists, because you have a breadth of experience. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kai. I wanted to. Do we have a little feedback here? Hello?
I just muted. Do you want to go ahead and try again, Jinhee?
Okay, sorry. I wanted to thank you for having me here, and as Andrew introduced me earlier, I became a lawyer because I saw people around me when I was attending school that immigrants in my neighborhood, my parents, the difficulties that they were going through immigration process at the time, and not being able to understand what they were doing, not knowing where the cases are. The whole legal system seemed to be so terrifying to them that the needless or sleepless nights that they worrying about their children's future, etc. And that really prompted me to become a lawyer, to learn about law, learn about how the legal system works. And my dream was actually being a prosecutor and trial lawyer. However, as things have it, um, I had moved on from being a prosecutor to doing some personal injury law, and then became a government lawyer again with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Um, and then leaving that a few years later to join a very large law firm and doing international transaction lawyer corporate law. And then becoming a immigration lawyer uh, just by happenstance. So it was a roundabout way of getting back to immigration law and why I was prompted to become a lawyer in the first place. I've been doing immigration law now for 21 years. And my law firm in Maryland is a small boutique law firm. We only specialize or focus on employment-based immigration and work visas like H-1Bs and L-1s and E-2, things like that. So even within the immigration law, there are specialties and focus areas that makes a lawyer or lawyers be more experts in that area. So next slide. Legal system in the United States is very complex. We have a system that is a combination of both the statute and regulation based as well as case law based. So it is different than any other legal system that I know of. And it is very important to go and find attorneys that are specializing in that particular legal issues that you're needing to deal with. Even though I had done criminal law before, it's been 30 plus years since I've done that. So I would not suggest that you go and hire me to be a criminal lawyer. It just is not the way to go. Same thing for estate planning or divorce. I would never take those cases. And you wouldn't hire me for that either. So within the specialty of various legal areas, you will find that you really do need to find someone who knows that particular law. U.S. system also, if you want to go to the next slide, I think U.S. system also is based on federal as well as the state law. I think you might want to go to the next slide. Yeah, there we go. The U.S. court system has a U.S. Supreme Court that deals with the biggest issues, legal issues of the country. But each state also has courts as well. You have the trial courts and you have the appellate court and Supreme Court at various states. Some states will only have the appellate court. For Maryland, especially, we do not have a Supreme Court. We just have appellate court as the highest court. So depending on where you are, you really need to deal with what's available in that state, what laws are, what rules and regulation ordinances are there. And different state has different trial courts, evidentiary rule, and local rules that you need to follow. So having, even as a lawyer, I do not feel comfortable going out there and going to North Carolina, for example, and going into a trial court today. So, I'm a Maryland lawyer, and I'm comfortable with Maryland state courts, but not other courts. So having this complex legal system, I think that it makes it doubly hard for newly arrived immigrants to navigate. And you really do need a friend and a guide, advisor who can guide you through this process. If you call me, I can actually get you to a particular place. I won't be able to represent you, but I can show you where to go to find the competent representation. And I'm sure Dianne can help you as well. Next slide. These are just 8 of the, immigrants run into legal areas that immigrants may run into. Immigration attorney, obviously, because you have to go through this process even before you can get here. But once you're here, you may or may not need a family law attorney who deals with anything from prenuptial agreement before you get married to divorce. Real estate attorney who can help you with buying and selling your homes, business and contract attorneys who can negotiate your business needs, and patent, trademark, and copyright attorney if you write a book or you invent something. Accident attorneys who is personal injury lawyer who should be able to help you when you fall, auto accidents, you're injured. Those are the attorneys that you want to deal with. Traffic and minor offenses are usually done by criminal lawyer because traffic laws are, even though it's a ordinance violation, some traffic violations such as driving under the influence is a criminal matter that could impact you in a criminal law setting. So 7 and 8, traffic and criminal law are done by the same group of people. Next is the federal attorneys versus the state licensed attorneys. I touched upon that earlier. You have a federal court system that has a trial court, these district courts, appellate courts, as well as the Supreme Court as the highest. But each state has the similar tier of courts as well. And you usually start with the state courts. You don't automatically go to the federal court unless you have a federal matter like immigration on hand, or you have exhausted all of the state courts and you are able to go into the federal level for a suing someone in another state. If you are multi-state parties, you may be able to file lawsuits in federal courts. So it is a complex situation that you need to discuss things with your trial lawyers, litigation lawyers. You also need to look for what are really the issue. You are looking for a specific law that you need help with, and these are things that you want to deal with a lawyer who will take time to talk to you. Next is the resources that you can find lawyers to help. American Bar Association has the list of lawyers all across the country. American Immigration Lawyers Association obviously has lawyers that does immigration law, and each state has a bar associations, and then there are online rating systems like AVO and Martindale Hubble. Thing about these resources is that these bar association is membership driven. So if the lawyers are not really part of that membership and pay the membership due, you might not find that lawyer. Just because they're not part of that association, are they bad? No, not necessarily. So you are the client, and you determine who you want to work with. It needs to be, I always say that hiring a lawyer, especially the immigration area, because we have to stay with you for many, many, many years through the long years of immigration process, it's almost like getting married. I've seen some marriages take, shorter time than my relationship with my clients. So I think that you need to find a lawyer that you're comfortable with, someone who will talk to you, who will answer your questions, not someone who will just say, I'm a lawyer, I know what I'm doing. You have no right to ask questions. Next slide. Small local law firm versus large law firm. Well, large law firms have the prestige of name recognition across the world. Some of these very large law firms. Some law firms specialize in lobbying work, so that you hear about them a lot in the news. So are they better? Not necessarily. Small and local law firm tend to have a more personal relationship with their clients, while some small and solo practice law firms tend to be a little bit overwhelmed with the number of clients and work, so that they might not be able to. So it really is depending on, your chemistry, your relationship, your preference in how you deal with the lawyers and how you deal with people in general. Getting a professional services is like any other that you want to feel comfortable with. You buy a house that you like because you feel comfortable and you're happy in it. It's the same thing with the law firm as well. You want to be happy with the lawyer that you have, and if you are not comfortable and they're not responsive to you, you don't have to stay with them. You can leave. And the choice is really yours. Next slide. Lawyers in the U.S. have various different ways of charging. Many lawyers charge by the hour. And more experience a lawyer has, higher the fee will be, a per hour basis. And larger law firms have higher fees per hour. Various lawyers, like in immigration field, immigration law, real estate law, tax, and estate planning, they may actually choose to charge you a flat fee. We do a flat fee based charge in our law firm. And that is based on one goal, obtaining a green card, for example, for you, your spouse, and 2 children. What would that be? We give you a flat fee for that. We charge, or we receive payment on a step-by-step basis. Now, you in EB-5 setting, the first petition you file is the immigrant petition of I-526. So there will be a flat fee for that. And the second step of 8 to 9, which is removal of condition, will be another flat fee. And then the citizenship will be a third step of, another flat fee. So those are the kinds of things that lawyers will do. Some legal areas like accidents, lawyers will say, we will not charge you anything up front, or we will charge you a very nominal, $1,000, $2,000 to get this case started, but we won't charge you anything else unless we recover or recover damages for you on your behalf. We will take 20%, 30%, sometimes even up to 50%. It's called the contingency fee. And that's often done in personal injury accident kind of cases, where you don't know whether you will recover, whether you will win. So the lawyers may take a chance with you and say, if you recover, I take a percentage. Is it recommended for you to do your own legal thing? There's an old saying that the lawyer who represents himself has a fool for a client. It is not recommended because, as I said at the very beginning, even as a lawyer, I will not be representing myself in a criminal setting or class action lawsuits or anything else. Right now, my specialty and my expertise really is based on immigration law, and even within the immigration law, employment-based immigration. I do not take deportation kind of cases, even though I started doing those cases 20 years ago when I started with the immigration law, because it's just things change. The case laws change, statutes change, regulation change. And if you don't keep up with it on a day-to-day basis, you're really not good enough to represent yourself, or someone else. So I do not recommend things like pulling up a form out of USCIS website or LegalZoom and doing things on your own. I have seen too many clients who come to me because they try to do it on their own, or they went with someone who really did not have the expertise they needed, and then messed the things up. When the cases get messed up, it's harder to recover than doing it right the first time. Being proactive is always better than being reactive. So I would not recommend you doing your own thing with LegalZoom. And I know there are insurance for many, many things, and health insurance is great for you. But legal insurance, I'm not really sure how good they are. The insurance industry in general, it is there to help, but they're also there to make money. So just because you have an insurance doesn't mean that everything gets paid. So be wary of what kind of insurance you're getting, if you're getting an insurance. And I don't think legal insurance is really well developed enough to really trust it. Class action is a very specialized litigation that is too complicated to really go into right now, but it is for multiple, 100, 200 similarly situated people banding together and suing someone. And there is a very specialized set of rules that you have to follow, and kind of a checkbox things that you have to, hurdles that you have to overcome in order to qualify as a class action, etc. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I think that's about it. And I'll answer any kind of questions. Oh, bottom line. How can I miss that? Bottom line, know who you are dealing with. Like I said, you really should get to know your lawyer. Your lawyer can be your representative as well as a friend and a confidant, and especially because attorneys and clients, we have what is called attorney-client privilege. Anything you discuss with me, I cannot tell it to Kai, I cannot tell it to Dianne, I cannot tell it to anyone else. Even though I like both Kai and Dianne, I cannot share that information. So, that's why lawyers are, can be your greatest ally and confidant. And therefore, you really do need to like that person, trust that person, and get to know that person. So it's important to choose someone that you can have that kind of relationship. If fees, again, should not be your greatest determinative factor in choosing a lawyer. And there is, I have always been hearing, oh, such and such lawyer will charge such and such, and why are you more expensive? I simply smile and say, because I'm better. But joking aside, you get what you pay for in many of the situations in your life. You don't buy a Mercedes for the price of Kia Soul, so fees are there, and sometimes, I give discounts, and other lawyers probably do the same. And so depending on the situation, depending on the clients, the fees can be adjusted. And so it's you don't want to spend too much money, but you don't want to go in the cheap, we're not in a bazaar trying to negotiate and haggle either. So the most important issue is the legal work getting done, and is that lawyer competent to do the good job? Rarely, but it has happened. The first time that Kai and I ever worked with was on a case where one lawyer who was hired by a mother for her son who would have been conscripted into the army, serving in the army, with a deadline looming, was told by the lawyer that the I-526 filing was done in July. She kept asking for the receipt notice, copies of the filing, and he kept saying, I'll give it to you, I'll get around to it, I'll give it to you. And 3 months later, she found out from him when he finally copped to the fact that he never did the work. I received a phone call at 2:00 in the morning from Korea in a panic from Kai's assistant, saying that this client needs to talk to you right now. Well, I am actually up very often at 2:00 in the morning, so I took the call, and we took over that case and filed that I-526 within 3 days. That case was approved within 3 weeks. So it was, it was a eye-opening experience for me as well, because I have never, ever seen a lawyer who would outright lie and say that they filed something when they didn't. From the client's perspective, it was nerve-wracking. So that kind of thing, you need to trust but verify. You need to ask for the receipt notice. You need to ask for copies of your petition. You have a right to it. And ask questions. If the lawyer is hedging, fudging, and reticent to answer your questions, that's an answer in and of itself, isn't it? So I think that you need to, again, trust but verify, and ask questions, and all of us here on this panel, we're here to help you out. So give us a call. I think that's it.
Sorry, Bob, we had a little snafu here. I was pushing the panelist button and ended up with it's rolling ahead on the PowerPoint. Jinhee, thank you very much for your insight and sharing your expertise. And, one of the things that brought a question up, and before we get to the Q&A, and I know the Q&A will be coming in. For those that want to enter a question, use your Q&A button, fill in the Q&A bit, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we possibly can. One of the questions that I had before we lead into that was something that you brought up about immigration and states and federal, and I see some of the immigration attorneys are registered with the New York bar, some with California bar, you're with the Maryland. But immigration law is federal law. They can practice anywhere. How does that work?
Okay. Yes, immigration law is based on the. There's a feedback. Uh, Immigration law is federal law. It is
Kai, I think you
federally.
need to mute.
It is federally mandated. It is a federal law, and any lawyer who is licensed in any state could do immigration law. And because immigration law is also form-based, a lot of lawyers who are just out of law school think that it's an easy way to do your do immigration law. That they can download the form, you can fill it, and there it is. But you and I both know how dangerous that is. And again, I keep coming up with old saying because I'm showing my age here. But old saying is little knowledge is dangerous. And people who are jack of all trades is a master of none. You really don't want to deal with lawyer who is doing everything under the sun. Real estate law, wills and trusts, to, traffic laws, and all of a sudden they're immigration law expert. That's just not the case. You just need you just know little bit, tips of the iceberg. And if you get into a complex situation, they're not going to be able to help. So yes, if you're licensed in any state, like I'm licensed in Maryland, but I do immigration law. Any lawyer who's licensed in any state can do immigration law. Yes.
Andrew, I'm going to turn it over to you with the Q&A. And again, panelists, thank you very much, and certainly looking forward to our Q&A here. Andrew?
Thank you, Kai. So we've got a few questions here. I'm going to try my best to divide them to who they should appropriately go to. Jinhee, where do I find, or where would someone find a list of reputable and reliable attorneys?
Well, every state and county has a website with a list of lawyers that are licensed to practice. But as I said earlier, all of these associations are membership driven. So I'm not a part of American Bar Association. I haven't been since I left the government, actually. So you will not find me in American Bar Association. The best way to find a lawyer is through a word of mouth. There are a lot of lawyers who actually, advertise in what used to be Yellow Pages or things like that. Or you see their picture and name on a bus and park benches and stuff. But that's not really what reputable lawyers really do. My hundreds of clients that I have all came through a recommendation and referral by our current and past clients who are satisfied. Their families, their friends are being referred to us. So that really is the best way. If you work with Dianne, I'm sure she will tell you how to find good lawyers, because she has run into many of them. Same thing for Kai, your neighbor, your aunt and uncle may know someone. And that really is the most trusted way of finding a good lawyer. And then once you get a name, you can, check on their approval records. Kai talked about how CMB has 100% approval track record. And I also have 100% approval track record in terms of source of funds and things. My only denial, one little denial that I have had in EB5 world was because of a fraudulent regional center that my client chose long time ago. So that was, 14 years of doing EB5 work. That's my track record. So, it's hard to know with thousands and thousands of lawyers out there. But, people that who can recommend you a good lawyer, it really is the best way.
Very important. Jinhee, I agree with you totally. Unfortunately, I do know where the bodies are buried. I have come across in my own personal immigration story, one of the attorneys turned out to be a fake and she went to prison. I made sure of that. And the second one lost his license because of highly unprofessional behavior. So not with me. Well, yes, with me, but he didn't lose his license over me. He should have, but he didn't. Somebody else did that for me. So yes, unfortunately, in my opinion, good expert advice is few and far between. And it's mostly people like yourself who have many years of experience, many happy clients, very good reputation. And as you said, finding the right referrals, because once you find a really good attorney, they will know the other good attorney. So I find that many of the people that I work with have been referred to me and my clients, and you build this group of people around you that you can trust and that you know are going to take the very best care of you. So it is a small community of very good legal advisors.
That's really true. We are right now just finishing a H-1B season, we call it. And I had 3 lawyers refer their clients to me because they know, they said, we need someone who can jump in and do this within the deadline, and we couldn't think of anyone else. So these are these really these kinds of referrals are really valued by me, because it really it means the world to me, because it shows that I've done a good thing by them, and they trust me. So it's a good feeling.
It is.
Jinhee, there's a bit of a segue question here from, the issue that you had with the one client filing with the regional center. And someone had asked, what kind of attorney should we go to if the regional center turns out to be fraudulent, or if there's an issue in that case?
Well, I actually, the first stop that you want to make is is actually contacting the FBI and Security Exchange Commission and report them. And then you want to find a litigator who can bring a lawsuit against that regional center to try and recover the money that you have lost. And then you want to find an immigration lawyer to assess where your situation is in terms of your legal status, or where your immigration process had stopped. Fortunately, my client, who was student at the time, was able to get the money back with the help of the FBI. And she is now married to a U.S. citizen, so it wasn't too much of an issue. But when you're dealing with things like EB-5, when you have back then 500,000, now it's 900,000, you really do want to go with proven track record entities like CMB and immigration lawyer who has done EB-5 work in for a long time. I think when EB-5 was really, really hot, with thousands of Chinese investors flocking in 2015, 16, just about anyone who has a license was getting into EB-5 and saying, oh, I can do EB-5 work. That's not the case, because you have a complicated source of fund tracking, as well as choosing a right kind of regional center. So it's EB-5 is very specialized field within the employment-based immigration, because you have a lot of money at stake. And when there's a lot of money at stake, there's also very bad players as well.
Yeah, and that's very important. I can't emphasize that enough. Kai and I have recently had a client who was in a similar position, and CMB, thank goodness, are trained to work with the system. But it's very, very difficult to get the word across to a potential EB-5 investor that it is supremely important that you do your due diligence and you go with a company that is as reputable as CMB at the outset, because it can be devastating for the family, for everybody concerned. It goes bad. And there have been some, historically good examples that you can find on the internet that this has happened. And so I in fact will not even accept a client that is working with a regional center that I do not feel comfortable with, because I don't want to be having to deal with the fallout with that client. So I will turn that away. I would rather say I'm not prepared to work with you unless you work with a reputable regional center. So
that's true.
Yeah, so I'm sure you feel the same.
Yeah. Kai, I think you had some statistics on this a while ago. At one point, we had over 900 regional centers that were designated by USCIS. And out of them, maybe 100, less than that, actually had a project. And then out of those, maybe about 24 have gone through I-526 and 829 successfully, at least once. And out of that, maybe about 10 had returned the investment. So, out of hundreds of regional centers, when you bring it down, the choice becomes only a handful. And it's the same thing for lawyers as well. There are thousands and thousands of immigration lawyers out there. But when you really look into what do they specialize in and what are their track record, the numbers just become very small.
Correct. Absolutely.
And consistently, there may be a one-off regional center that has guided their people through, but how many have been able to do it time and again with consistency, without fail, and with a track record that streams from beginning to end multiple times, and that number even becomes smaller then. So it's very selective, and the new question is how do you know that the regional center is going to be around 5 or 6 years if they're brand new? Most businesses fail. 90% of the businesses fail the first couple of years. How do you know that company's going to be around, or that project's going to be around, or that their interests align with yours? So there's a lot of questions, and we can guide you through that questions on the due diligence process. And as you choose the attorney that'll guide you through the immigration and the form filing and the source of funds, then we work very closely together as the regional center and your choice of attorney, and guiding you through that process to a successful completion. So, but as just Jinhee said, it's like we're married, because who you join as a regional center and attorney, they'll follow you throughout the entire process for a period of time. And there's a big decision to make, and it's probably one of the most important decisions that any family can make, other than who will be the person that they marry, is where do you invest, and how, because it's a life changer, and your entire life will change as a result. So it needs to be measured carefully.
Yeah, that's really true. I think that given the fact that all of these things really, you have not just your life, but your whole family's life at stake in terms of immigration process, and lawyer who guide you through this. Remember, I started thinking about becoming a lawyer because I saw my parents suffering through the immigration process, and the lawyer they worked with didn't give them any information at all, and all the sleepless nights that they had gone through worrying about their future and their children's future. I don't want that to happen to my clients, so I answer their emails within minutes or hours, and definitely within 24 hours, always. And so if you don't really have a lawyer who tells you what it is you're asking for, it doesn't take the time to talk to you, doesn't take the time to explain what the process is, what to expect, that's not a good fit for you. Now, you don't want to go through what my parents went through.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Jinhee. I think one of the most difficult things that I find with my clients is urging them or encouraging them to get out of a bad situation. So many of them go with an attorney in the beginning, they go with the wrong attorney, the attorney doesn't perform, and then they are too afraid to get out of the relationship. And I'm saying that is the best thing that you can do, is to get out of a bad relationship and into a good one with a good referral to somebody who will answer their emails, answer their questions, and be there for them the whole step of the way. So I find that a challenge, because often they're reticent to jump ship, because they think, oh, well, the person's got all my information, and they don't realize that an efficient, excellent attorney will pick up that case very quickly and run with it exactly like you did with that poor woman who needed her 526 urgently applied for, and you did it in 3 days. I mean, that's unheard of. That's really moving.
It's really funny. I actually recommended that that attorney be reported to disciplinary counsel in California, and it never went through because, again, the client was was in Korea. She didn't know how to, so that lawyer got away with it. Unfortunately.
Many of them do, often.
Yeah.
I find my biggest challenge when I'm meeting with new clients around the world is to encourage them to choose wisely and to do their homework, do their due diligence, and listen to good advice. And that's a challenge, I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Take the advice.
Another question, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jinhee, you actually just brought something else up. You had reported an attorney about a situation. Is that something the clients are able to do as well? Are they able to report?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, disciplinary councils operate differently. It's from state to state to state. Um, some this bar councils are much more, I guess, zealous than they need to be, and some councils really don't want to take up unless all the evidence is there and just hand fed to them. And in the situation with this client that I was telling you about, she did actually file, and then the lawyer was asking questions and questions, and she just kind of gave up. And she said, I'm in Korea, this is hard to follow up. And the case was never brought by the California Bar Council. So it 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 never really materialized. But then, other bar councils will take the flimsiest thing and run with it. I don't know. So I think that it is an option for everyone, but thing is that again, it needs to be an actionable thing. So in a situation where a lawyer lies to you and misses the deadline, um, actual deadline filing, there is no actual deadline filing for 5 to 6 filing, for example, because the case is just starting. In this particular situation, there was a deadline because of the Army conscription that this young man was facing. But normally, at the beginning of the filing stage, there is no deadline. But once it is filed, USCIS will give you a request for evidence, for example. And those kinds of things, there is a deadline. And if you miss it, your case gets denied. So if a lawyer doesn't respond in time, it's an automatic denial. So that is a very serious situation. And oftentimes a solo practice lawyer who's overwhelmed with cases, and because EB-5 cases are so complicated and voluminous in terms of stacks of paper. I think I've done this once or twice. We actually took a photo of our 5 to 6 filing, which was like 9 inches high. So when you're trying to put these things together, it could be a lot. So, they may miss the deadline and stuff like that. So if that happens, if it's just a mistake of being overwhelmed and not being able to be on top of the case, and when the deadline is, bar council may forgive you. But if it is a practice, or especially if you lie to the client saying, oh, I already filed it when they didn't, then that becomes an actionable thing. So depending on the mistake the lawyer makes and whatever can be done to rectify it will determine whether or not you want to actually take a position or file an action. But if it's a really bad actor, then you should.
Wonderful. So Dianne, here's a question. I've owned a property in Florida since 2018, pay property taxes, management fees, power, et cetera, but have no mortgage. Will these types of bills assist with my credit score?
Not necessarily, I'm sorry to say, because those are essential services that you have to pay. In other countries, they are sometimes recognized towards your credit score, but generally a credit score in the United States is only accumulated by having actual credit. So things like a credit card, a store card with Home Depot or Lowe's, or some department store, a loan to buy a vehicle, or a mortgage. Those are your four primary sources of building a credit score. So I'm afraid I have bad news for you. And that is why Pathway came up with the plan of getting a foreign national mortgage for a foreign investor with between 25 and 35% down payment. And then you get the tenant that you put into that property to pay your mortgage. And we are in the fortunate position in the United States that rentals are generally higher than a mortgage payment. So you are generally in a good space when you rent out a property that you own in the United States. And that's another reason why we encourage it. It is also in America, we also have the benefit of you are able to claim the interest portion of your mortgage payment every month from the IRS when you make your personal return every year. So that is a benefit. And then of course you have the added benefit of having a permanent address in the United States and a place to move to and move into when you finally arrive here, if that is your choice. Many of my clients do that. They find it works very well for them. Others prefer to keep the investment property as an investment and keep it running with a tenant in it as a separate investment in their portfolio. So it just depends on what the client wants to achieve. But it's very important that the mortgage goes towards your credit score.
Query. Dianne, you obviously coming from South Africa, spoke English and you speak beautifully, and I love your accent. But learning English, I can tell you what I have gone through. My mother, in particular, decided not to learn English, despite the fact that we've been in this country for almost 50 years. She decided that my maintaining Korean language and my cultural background was much more important than her learning English. And it became a huge issue for her to be able to assimilate and live in the United States. She, right now at age almost 88, she cannot do anything on her own. She cannot be independent and take really care of herself, even to the healthcare, without my help and my translation. So having seen that, I take the viewpoint of ESL and things like that to give you a crutch and just insulated within your kind of home country group of people is not advisable. What's your take on it, Dianne?
I'm very strict with my clients. I believe that when you come to America and you need to assimilate as quickly as possible because of your story, because the isolation that she suffered all these years is very emotionally destructive. And so and I know that it's very difficult for somebody in their 30s or 40s, which is probably what she was when she came to the United States, very hard to learn a new language, especially from an Asian country where you have different alphabet, you have different culture, and we've all kept our culture. We've all eat the same food. We still love the traditions. But I believe that my most successful immigrants that I've relocated here are ones that have dived into the American culture, learned the language, encouraged their children to do the same. And many still speak in the home. They still speak their language to each other, but they are English speaking as well. And I think that that is very important, a very important issue that you brought up there. And I encourage all of my clients to do that.
Thanks,
you both.
Dianne.
Well, we are getting close to the end of our event, so I'm going to try to squeeze in one or two more questions here before we wrap up. There's a question here about, do I need an attorney to buy a home or to buy a car in the U.S.?
My simple answer is not necessarily, although buying a home at the closing, there is always a settlement attorney that works with a title company to verify your title and so forth and record your transaction. So you don't need it, but that's all is always part of the process that your realtor comes, and then your loan company will refer you to a person who will do those closing documents. Cars, not necessarily, but Diane can tell you.
I still believe that even though you are working with a reputable real estate agent, very important to do a due diligence on the real estate closing attorney, because they are also inundated with business. We're in the hottest real estate market in the history of this country right now. And so everybody is closing and refinancing because the interest rate has been so low. And so I still believe that you need to do a little bit of due diligence on what closing attorney you use that also has a track record of closing on time. And especially if you're a foreign national client that has to work remotely with the real estate attorney, because the documents have to be signed in your home country. Sometimes there's an apostille that has to happen. Sometimes it goes to a superior court in your home country. So these are all things that we do every day. And so that's very important that the client understands what those expertise levels are. And we're happy to guide our clients through that.
And Diane, I agree with you. There aren't too many times when someone spends $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 on anything. And having an attorney, in my opinion, is important to have my interests protected. The title company is going to protect their interest. I'm sure that the real estate brokerage company has their attorneys to protect their interest. But in my opinion, you need someone in your corner to protect your interest. And the example that I use, you don't pull your own teeth. So I wouldn't have myself represented in a real estate transaction where hundreds of thousands of dollars are going to be exchanged that I'm either going to spend or be accountable for in some way.
Well, and it can get really complicated because it depends on do you have a will? If something happens to you and that property is no longer being paid by you, what are your heirs? Who is responsible for keeping those payments up? Things like, are you married? Who is going to have the property in their name? I mean, these are all pieces of advice that you need good, sound legal advice from an attorney that can, as you say, have your interest at heart.
Yeah.
Some people want to create a company to put their investment property in for various reasons. And so these are all issues that need to be discussed with the client and get the best advice for them. And we do this every day, refer out all the time.
And Jinhee's exactly right. You don't necessarily need one. I just like that little extra $400, $500, $600, $1,000, whatever it is just nice insurance policy.
Absolutely.
I think that's all the time that we have today. Kai, did you want to wrap up before we finish up here today?
I do. I'd certainly like to thank our guests here today, Jinhee Wilde, attorney at law, immigration attorney, and with a broad breadth of experience in all manners of law. Certainly thank you for being here today, sharing your expertise. Your contact information, Jinhee, they'll be able to find you on the internet and be able to reach out to you with any questions, or if any of the attendees have any questions for Jinhee, you can certainly channel them to us here at CMB and we can forward them on. Dianne, Stewart, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to that page, if it'll take me there for just a moment, so that the guests can scan your QR code. And it'll take just a couple of seconds, I think, to get back there.
And And just on that note, while you're finding that slide, Kai, this guide has 3 sections, and it has a lot. They have lists of actionable things that you can do to prepare while you are waiting to come to the US, when you arrive, and when you are living here. So it's a comprehensive list of ideas and actionable items that you can start working on right now while you wait to come to the US. And I hope you'll find it valuable. And we'd really be honored if you would like to work with us. But I hope that the guide will be of assistance to you and really give you a lot of detail as to how you need to go about planning your move, your great move to the United States, so that you can enjoy the lifestyle that Jinhee and her family have enjoyed, and me and my family have enjoyed as immigrants to this wonderful country. So thank you again, Jinhee. And thank you.
Share your email and contact information.
Who are you speaking with?
Yeah, Jinhee, your email address.
Yeah.
What is your email?
Oh, it's immigration@walawusa.com.
So if you'd like to scan that code with your phone, it'll take you directly to the page on our website where you can send us your details, and we will then return you a link that you can open up the guide and you can view it, all 12 pages on it. Just a note about that. If you order it on your phone, you need to access it on your phone. There are cookies in our website that identify that you are who you say you are. And so if you're going to access it on your computer, you can open it only on your computer. So if you access it on your iPad or your iPhone, open it on your iPhone or your iPad. So I hope that clears up any confusion that you might have if you're unable to open it when you get the link.
Thank you both again for being here today, and thanks for sharing your expertise. I'd like to invite our attendees and our guests to our next webinar. And my system is frozen, so I'm sorry about that. I can't take you there. We'll send that out in the next day over the email. Please watch for that. We have an exciting webinar that's coming up to talk about the purchase of a car in the United States. And it's different in the United States than it is around the rest of the world. So what we've done is we've gotten an expert in how to buy a car in the United States, some of the things to think about, what the process happens to be. We're an automobile-driven society, and so that will be our next webinar that's coming up. And as soon as I get to that slide, I'll show you all about that. There it is. And that's coming up the 13th of April. So thank you all for being here today. We want to thank you for your attending and your questions. Here's some contact information if you need to get hold of CMB, or if you'd like to get hold of CMB, find out more information about the EB-5 program, EB-5 projects that CMB presently has, the history, the EB-5 program, our history of success, or to contact one of our investor relations managers, or to speak with Andrew directly. He'll be glad to answer any of those or gather those questions and channel any questions that you may have. You can certainly reach out to us at info@CMB EB5Visa.com or our website, www.cmbeb5visa.com. We'll be glad to serve you and any questions that you may have today and in the future. Once again, thank you. I wish you all the best. Safe travels, healthy days, and good luck.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.